Dr. Jimmy here, at your service. Well, there's been quite a lot of reveals happening for Halloween Horror Nights recently. A little bit about a week or so ago, there was a big one. 2 new haunted mazes announced for Hollywood. And I was going to make one of these videos about it, but then every time I was getting ready to do that, some more information was revealed for something else, and it got a bit hectic, and I think I can finally get it in now. Of course, first, t-shirt of the day. The lovely Mardi Gras t-shirt from 2014, Universal Studios Mardi Gras 2014. Now, about the reveals that have happened over the past several days, but none at all for Orlando. Oh, how distressing for those of us here. The one that we're most interested in, we've still heard nothing yet. At least nothing new. But quite a bit for the other 3 Halloween Horror Night events that are happening this year. So let's start off then with some updates for the event in Japan. Universal Studios Japan Halloween Horror Night 2016, which of course is in the lovely city of Osaka. Now, I had revealed most of the event and once it came out, but there's been a lot of updates to the website. It's got a lot more pages, a lot more detailed information. Most of it's stuff we already knew, but there's some new intriguing stuff. First of all, location. For 3 years, they had a Friday the 13th maze in Lombard's Landing quick service restaurant. Yes, can you imagine, of all places to stick a haunted house? Just can you imagine that happening in Orlando? I don't think so. The one on Fisherman's Wharf, yes, that's the one. They have that restaurant in Japan, and they use that for 3 years, and then last year was their Nightmare on Elm Street haunted house was in the same place. So, is that where A Nightmare on Elm Street The Maze 2 is going? No! This time they're not using that other facility. Yes, past several years they've had a Biohazard The Real interactive game, actually live action, sort of like laser tag, Resident Evil game going on in Japan during Horror Nights. Not this year. So the facility by Spider-Man in New York, where that's been, that's going to be where they're putting the haunted house for Freddy Krueger this year, and I think right next door in the same area is the haunted house for The Exorcist. So those are new locations, I think, for haunted houses in Japan this year. I was looking very carefully at the map to try to figure it out, even though I've never been to the park in Japan. Yes, Chucky is still in Soundstage 22 in Japan, and the Trauma House, Trauma 2, will be in the same location it was last year as well. Sadako will indeed be haunting the Terminator 2 attraction like she did last year. The Gakko no Kaidan Haunted School haunted attraction will be in the Shrek 4D theatre, but also in Backdraft. So it's haunting 2 locations. So they have 3 haunted attractions. There are rides that have been given a haunted overlay. 2 of them are Gakko no Kaidan. That's interesting too. I didn't know that, but looking carefully at the map I figured it out. I can't read the Japanese very easily because I don't know all the kanji. I can do some of the hiragana and katakana, but I can't do the kanji. So that was all rather interesting to figure that out. So that gives me some more information about that. Also, the Tatari, the JHorror Zone. Now, they don't call them scare zones in Japan, they call them horror zones, yes. Every other one calls it scare zones, but the one in Japan always calls it horror zone. Anyway, the JHorror Zone, which is brand new, original content for once in Japan. Separate from the zombie scare zones, horror zone, the street zombies. The JHorror Zone is all backup where Back to the Future used to be, on that street that goes up around that way. The top of the park, so to speak. And it's based on a real-life Shinto shrine called Owashima Shrine. Washima Shrine in Wakayama, Japan, which is a doll shrine which contains countless little creepy memorial dolls. I guess they're made in the image of someone that's been lost, and so they're memorialized and placed in the shrine. Thousands of these little dolls, many of them looking like little children, rather creepy looking, but they're actually benign. In the Shinto faith, every object in the world, and not just animals and plants and humans, but every single object has a spirit. This book has a kami, spirit or god, inside of it. So if you're nice to the book, it'll probably be nice to you. But if you rouse that spirit in a bad way, something, paper cuts. I don't know, something bad could happen to you. There's always a notion in all of J-horror that there's a possibility of some sort of supernatural retribution. That seems to be a major theme in all of the Japanese horror movies. It's a major source of horror in Japan. So these little dolls are mostly benign in this shrine, and the priest there will tell you there are supernatural activities and paranormal events, lots of energy flowing around there. And there's one doll in particular, the hair on its head tends to grow. It's real human hair and it's alive. I guess they have to give it they have to take the doll out and give it a haircut every so often, because otherwise the hair will just grow over the whole thing and look like Cousin It. But that one's not kept where people can go and look at it, though, so it makes me a bit suspicious. But they've got all sorts of these dolls there, and all sorts of supernatural effects are supposed to happen from time to time, but always benign. You see, the Japanese idea is that you get what you give. So if you're nice to things, they're nice back to you. But if you piss off the spirits, oh, you're fucked. And so I'm guessing at Tatari will be somebody was disrespectful of the spirits. Don't diss the spirits. No. And so it becomes, that's what Tatari really means. It's a sort of curse, divine retribution. So obviously something really bad has been done, and they're coming after whoever it was in a bad way. So that's Japan. Now let's go to Singapore. Lots of new stuff there. Lots of new information about all the haunted houses. Changi Hospital I talked about before. There's a character coming back this year from Halloween Horror Nights 5 last year. And Changi Hospital was in the True Singapore Ghost Stories haunted house, the one that takes place on the train, the MTR I think it was, the MRT, I forget what it is. But anyway, it's a train in Singapore. And the character was called the Pontianak. Now, Pontianak is a Malay vampire, sort of. It's always a female woman, long white dress, long black hair, sort of like the typical J-horror or Asian horror archetype of the creepy woman, the Yurei type ghost with a long white dress and long black hair, kind of scary and creepy. But in this case, it's the spirit of a woman who died in childbirth. And she's really upset by this, and she lures victims by making cries like babies. And so you go to see what's wrong with this child, and when you get there she is, and she has big pointy fingernails, and she sticks them into your abdomen, ripping it open, and then feasts on your genitals. And if you're male, she rips them right off. Nom 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 nom. Ooh, get you where you live. I don't think they're going to reenact that graphically in Singapore, where they have a lot of laws about that sort of thing. They're very strict in the laws. If you're naughty and spit on the sidewalk, you can get caned. Remember that. You can get. Don't be naughty in Singapore. You can be in big trouble. Very strict with the laws there. So I don't think they're going to do anything quite that in this, but it would still be. They all know the story. And so they've got a big freaked out when they see Pontianak there, as they were last year when she was in that other haunted house. Another weird fact about Pontianak, according to the legends, she's attracted by laundry that's hanging out, which is why a lot of Malay people don't like to leave the laundry hanging out overnight, because if you leave it hanging out overnight, that's when it attracts the Pontianak, and then she'll come get you. So she's going to be in Old Changi Hospital. And what more appropriate place for her to haunt than a hospital? A woman who died in childbirth, right? It makes more sense in a train. I think it makes much more sense. So she's coming back. In fact, she was probably the image that was seen early on. The woman in white with the bloody face that was reflected in the mirror. We also have in the Bodies of Work house, now that it's been more fully revealed on the website, I know it's not about any sort of mad science or dark arts. The bodies are being reassembled for art. That is, art is a mad painter or sculptor, is an artist. His name is Damien Shipman. Oh, I know the Pontiac's name, by the way, her actual name, but I can't reveal it because it's something you have to solve on the online game. So you have to go through the hospital and get the clues and then figure her name out. If you don't do it right, so you better figure her name out right. If you want to play the games on the website. I'm not going to spoil that, no. It's just that they're fun. Okay, so the Bodies of Work. Damien Shipman. There was a terrible fire. His whole house burned down. All his family died. And it made him go berserk. And so now he wants to bring his family back. And so he finds human victims that kind of look like his dead family. Maybe not exactly. So, you know, he severs bits and pieces off and then puts them back together with paint and clay and thread and needles and all the sort of thing an artist would do to create a whole art exhibit. That's what Bodies of Work's about. Kind of creepy. Alright, now the other 3 houses haven't been officially revealed on the website, although we already know what they are because they've been put out to all sorts. It's on the official blog for Halloween Horror Night 6, so it's already been released. They just haven't put it on the website with the fun games and graphics yet. But we know Huli's Inn, I mentioned before, with the Huli Jing creatures, the fox spirits. I now know it's going to be located, the setting for the house is Shanghai, China. It's not set in Singapore, it's set in China. So that makes it a little bit different. Oh, it makes sense, the Chinese fox spirits. It's actually set in old Shanghai, so that's the setting for the house. The third house, the fourth house, Salem Witch house. I thought it might be set in old Salem village back in the day, you know, and all that went on. And by the way, I'm descended from 3 different witch families. Bradbury, Proctor and Martin. So I've got ancestors who were all, you know, well, Bradbury got away. Mary Bradbury got away. She was put in the cell. She was condemned to die. They were going to hang her. They go back next morning and get her. She's gone. Like magic. Good thing, too, because she was the great-great-great-great-grandmother of Ray Bradbury. So it's a good thing she survived. Otherwise, we wouldn't have all those wonderful books and stories. He's my cousin. Yes, he is. My 9th cousin. So, well, he was. He passed away a couple of years ago. But, so I know a bit about this because of that connection to Salem. But what's interesting is they picked a name that had nothing to do with it. It's a name that's not any of the witch families. It's DeFeo. There was no one named DeFeo. DeFeo was the name of the people in Amityville. It had nothing to do with Salem. But they just picked that name up, maybe because of the Amityville horror, I don't know. They picked that name, and these are the DeFeo witches, apparently, and someone in modern times, some modern witchcraft enthusiasts, you know, they want to go there and play Ouija board or something and do some sort of rituals. Not real Wiccans, but people who just, you know, think they want to try to play some fun witch games. And by doing stuff they don't know shit about in the house where the witches were from, pisses the spirits off. Again, don't piss off the spirits. And of course they come back for retribution. So that's what that house is about. I thought it would take place back in the day, but apparently this, the Salem Witch House, takes place in modern times. All right, obviously in Massachusetts, I would guess. And the last one is the Hawker Center Massacre, which of course is set in Singapore, the Hawker Center, the food stands on the streets. And I found out that Uncle Wang and all the other hawkers go berserk and cannibalistic because of radioactive food poisoning. I didn't know that before, but it showed up on the blog. Oh, that's why they go berserk and start eating people. Radioactive food poisoning. No wonder. Yes, make sure you don't eat radioactive food. What if you use a microwave isn't all... never mind. Don't go there. Eat you. Yeah. All right, where was I? Yes. Right, so that's the updates on all the houses and new information that was revealed. Oh, scare zones. They gave the scare zones at last. Now we know what the 2 scare zones are. One of them is called Suicide Forest. Now, that's all they said was the name of it, but obviously it's a forest where people go to commit suicide, and if I'm pretty darn certain that it's based on a very famous suicide forest in Japan, Aokigahara Forest, which is the forest where it's notorious. So many people go there to commit suicide that they've actually put signs up in front of it saying, You know, if you are distraught and feeling suicidal, please seek counselling and don't kill yourself in our woods, please. Thank you. The government puts up signs like that up in the in front of the paths going into the place. Doesn't stop people from going in and you know whatever they're going to do. It just happens a lot. So they built a whole. And it's kind of unusual to do a Japan-based thing in Singapore because there's a lot of animosity about the war even today. But so maybe they like the idea of Japanese people killing themselves. I don't know, that's kind of rude, but they do have that as one of the creepy scare zones. The other one is March of the Dead. Now this is based on the Dia de la Muerta of Mexico, the great Day of the Dead celebration, you know, like the one we had here, but bigger, and Lady Death is the icon, and she is indeed a figure from the Mexican Day of the Dead. And so this is her scare zone, and it's a big festival, Day of the Dead festival, and at some point during the evening, several times, it picks up and becomes a parade, and goes through the park, and then sits down, and then when it sits down, it becomes a show. So it's a scare zone, and a parade, and a show. It's like street theatre done big. And they've done, you know, they've kind of pushed some scare zones here in Orlando toward theatre a little bit more and more every year, but this, nothing quite as big as this one. So it's quite exciting to hear about that. I can't wait to see the videos. Because, of course, they don't do a lot of video and taping in the houses, but they do allow a lot of videotaping in the streets, and so that's going to be fun. I can't get to Singapore, but I can watch the videos, and I can't wait to see those. So that is one of the shows, as well as being one of the scare zones. So one of the shows and one of the scare zones are the same thing, sort of. And the other show, of course, we already talked about, Jack's Nightmare Circus, coming back again. So that's all of that from Singapore. So then, the other big reveal, last week, two mazes for, not just one reveal, but two at once, for Halloween Horror Nights 2016 at Universal Studios Hollywood. You know, the one that's in the city of Burbank, California. Yes, always have to remind them, they're not actually in Hollywood, they're in Burbank. Yes, and they revealed two new mazes, sort of. One of them is Freddy vs. Jason, but not the same one we had last year in Orlando. It's Freddy and Jason, and they're fighting and all of that, but it's going to be their own take on it. In fact, their Halloween, Hell Comes to Haddonfield, by the way, is also their own take on a sequel to Halloween from 1978. You know, although it's the reason the house in Orlando is called Halloween Hell Comes to Haddonfield is because apparently someone didn't want to pay for two logos, so they used the same name, the one they had in Hollywood here in Orlando. The one in Orlando is strictly based on the script for Halloween 2, on the movie. Okay, so that is the movie Halloween 2 that we're having in Orlando. In Hollywood, it's their own original take on it, so it can diverge a bit from that film. It may diverge a lot from that film, I'm not sure yet. But same thing with Freddy vs. Jason. And also, it's a little bit different. It reverses the order of things from what we had in Orlando. In Orlando, when you went into that house last year, it was Camp Crystal Lake. Here you go into the house, it's going to be the boiler room. Then after the boiler room Freddy stuff, you're going to get to Camp Crystal Lake somewhere in the middle. Then after that, it's the fight between the two of them, right? And why they're fighting, it's not the setup from Freddy vs. Jason, the movie, and the similar setup in the house in Orlando. There's going to be an explanation for what the fight's about, given in a prologue, which will be audio or video or both, while you're in queue to go in the house. So we'll find out what that is there, I guess, in the queue for that house. Now, the other one is Texas Chainsaw Massacre Blood Brothers. Not Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre Blood Brothers. So it's written like the title of the later films, not the first. It's not based on the first film from 1974. It's not based on the second film from 1986. It is an original story, untold story of the Sawyer family from 1979. It takes place in between Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. Now that's interesting, isn't it? So it's sort of like a sequel to the first one and a prequel to the second one. It's like in between. It's like Chainsaw 1.5. I don't know. But anyway, they put that in there. It takes place right after Chop Top comes back from Vietnam. So Chop Top had been around for a while in Part 2. And of course, the hitchhiker died in Part 1, and Chop Top was sort of the replacement character for that. But with this one, of course, It starts in Texas. It starts with the old barbecue and gasoline stand. I understand will be the facade for that. And then the story will continue. Murdy has said, shocking finale, shocking. Don't know what he means by that. Is someone going to be electrocuted? Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe, because he could be being literal, because he's carny, right? Yeah? It could also have to, and he also says there's something to do with the whole flashbulb opening of the first movie. That will be an homage to the finale there. So somehow they might recreate those effects, with the weird sound of the flashbulbs going off, whatever that noise is in the first part, and that will be at the end of the house. So what that shocking finale will be, of course, again, it's something you'll have to wait and see, because Murdy is always carny. He tease, and sometimes deliberately misleads a little bit to mess you up with all his red herrings. So it all sounds rather exciting. So those are all the updates and the new reveals for Hollywood, Singapore and Japan. So I'm getting very excited. And here it is only August. And of course that means Halloween Horror Night starts next month. Oh my god. That's true, I hadn't thought of that. It starts next month. It's next month. It's like next month already. In fact, a week after next, this is Wednesday. Not next Wednesday, but Wednesday after next. It'll be less than a month, because it'll be the 17th by then. Oh my god. So in 2 weeks it'll be less than a month. Ooh, and now I'm getting really excited. Well, we have to have a reveal for Orlando soon. And Murdy was saying something about an upcoming Scare LA thing. When is that? This weekend? Next weekend? Whenever it is, he's going to be talking about 2 haunted houses, one of which has already been revealed and one of which has not. Which means something will be revealed for Hollywood between now and then. And I don't remember what date Scare LA is. Is that? If you know what date Scare LA is, then get excited about it, because I don't remember what date it is. But that means on Scare LA convention coming up, by the time that happens, there will be a reveal, or a reveal made that day of that meeting, of that presentation. I'm not sure which, but I have a very, very strong feeling, not saying I have any information, but a very strong feeling. They didn't reveal the 2 Texas chainsaw houses at the same time, although they're not really the same house, if you think about it. One's based on the film in '74, the other's based on a different story that takes place in '79, so I can get that. But I have a very strong feeling that both of the remaining mazes for Hollywood, which are both intellectual properties, are intellectual properties that are being shared with Orlando this year. So both revealed houses, unrevealed houses, so that whatever is being revealed for Hollywood by Scare LA will also be revealed for Orlando at the same time. So that means a reveal for Orlando is coming up, as Mr. Aiello told us, soon. So I'd like to thank Michael Aiello in Orlando, John Murdy of California, Markham Gannon of Singapore, and Steve Tatham of Japan, the great creative directors who make all the magic happen, with all of the wonderful people who collaborate with them, of course, and anticipate all the fun and games coming up this year. Of course, I'll only be attending the one in Orlando. Don't have the budget or the time to get to the other 3 yet. Till then, ta-ta.